Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me today. Very much appreciated. Have you ever been in a trade show environment and you have been maybe standing on a booth and a customer has been approaching your booth and you have really not known what to say to them? Maybe you have learned a few textbook phrases from school days, or maybe some phrases that somebody has taught you, and you say them very quickly, and the buyer just nods and walks off. Um, if that is the case, then I'm hoping today's live stream will help you with correcting that. So, I'm Frank, for those of you that don't know me, and my background is that I have spent 22 years of my life. Sounds quite a long time, doesn't it? 22 years of my life living in Hong Kong. And in that time, in the first 12 years, I was working in my own manufacturing business. And without sort of boring you all to death, we used to manufacture stainless steel kitchenware items, and we used to manufacture in factories in the south of China. We used to exhibit at trade shows, international trade shows around the world, and we used to sell to multiple international accounts around the world. So there were multiple times when I was standing up in my booth in a trade show, and I had to sell to prospective customers that I have never met in my life before. So that was the first part of my story. And the second part of my story, after doing my manufacturing business, I moved into teaching, which is what obviously what I'm doing now. So when I'm teaching English, particularly business English, I see it through the mind of someone who is genuinely needing to sell, someone that genuinely understands how you feel if you don't sell and the consequences of not selling. So all of my English, I guess, is very much with that in mind, trying to use all of my experience to manipulate the language, the English language, as much as possible to try to get as much in the way of sales as possible. And this is really geared up for non-native speakers, but I guess it is helpful for native speakers as well. So going back to my time on the trade show needing to sell in English, the buyer is approaching the booth. A lot of the advice is that, and I was like this as well in my early days of trying to sell, we need to know what our product features are. So I've got a pen here. What is the material of this pen? What is the quality of this pen? What are the dimensions of this pen, the color? So you can list out all the various different product features. And then a lot of the advice is to try to hit a buyer with the various features. And obviously, you're trying to make out that your features are possibly better than somebody else's. And in addition to that, a lot of people will learn set phrases, set sales phrases in English, and replicate them, spew them out to their prospective buyers with the hope, it's almost like fishing, isn't it? With the hope of trying to catch a big fish which is walking past your booth. And a lot of the time, you maybe will say one of these phrases, and the buyer will maybe not even reply, walk off, goodbye, and that's the end of it. And with sales on the international stage, what I used to find was that if you didn't manage to secure a buyer there and then, at least their interest, at least start the conversation with them, they would be lost, and they could well be lost for the rest of the year, and maybe not until the next year, because it's very difficult in between times to get them on the telephone, for them to reply to correspondence. When they're there in the flesh, it's like a golden opportunity to initiate contact and to start a relationship. So there's so much pressure on those sort of 30 seconds when the buyer is approaching your booth. And you really want to come good on that. You really want it to have a positive outcome. Now, I'm not trying to say that every single buyer that walks past your booth can be secured. It's a bit like fishing. You can't, catch every single fish in the sea. But what you can do is sway the odds in your favor. So, very long-winded explanation, but it is alive, so I guess I'm allowed to do that. What I used to do was I moved pretty swiftly from using a features approach to selling to a storytelling approach to selling. And I've written down a few points on a piece of paper here just to sort of help guide me through some of the ways in which I used to use storytelling to sell at trade shows. And I wanted to start with selling, sorry, sharing success stories with potential buyers. So, what I used to try to do was, I used to try to very quickly get the customer to be bought into my success stories, which I had had with existing customers. So, if I had had a success story with one of my products in another market, I would like to share that success story with a potential customer that I maybe hadn't started working with yet. Admittedly, they would be in different markets, so I wouldn't be sort of crossing swords or damaging trust from that perspective. One example I had was I used to have a very good customer in Turkey, and he made the decision to repackage some of my products in a quite unique way and reposition my products in a specific location in his store. And that led to a massive increase in sales for that particular customer in Turkey. So I used to use this example, this success story example, with other prospective customers. So, for example, I would maybe say to somebody, can I share? I mean, if you've got some time, can I share a success story that I've had with some of my products with other customers around the world? And that usually would be sufficient to be able to draw a prospective customer in. If people feel that they are possibly missing out on something, then it's only human instinct that they don't want to be missing out on something. So they will at least hear you out. So that I found was a very good way of using stories, success stories in one market. People usually think in their mind, oh, that success may well work in my market too. So they would then lean in and listen to what you have got to say. Another way in which I used to use stories to sell on a trade show, at a trade show, was to lean into the why. And this was probably one of my favorite techniques of using storytelling to sell. And this I did in a couple of different ways, in fact. So one way was, why are you in business in the first place? And you know, I think if customers can feel a sense of purpose, if they can feel a sense of passion, a sense of energy, then they will very quickly, as human beings, we respond to that very quickly. We are drawn into emotion, and we empathize with that. So for me, why did I start doing stainless steel kitchenware? Well, for me, I felt it was an area in which I could make a difference. I was the only Western person really that was based out of Asia in the industry at that particular time. And I could see a huge gap in terms of developing new products. So my main drive and ambition was to innovate new products, to innovate, to innovate, to innovate. And I used to share that with prospective customers all the time. And moving on from that, obviously, a byproduct of that was that I used to like to innovate products. So there were reasons behind why products were developed as well. And, it's not just a question of saying, oh, this is a pen, it's made out of plastic, it's, 15 centimeters long, and and then listing, all the various sort of boring features. Why was this developed in the first place? What is the story behind this particular product? Where did the idea come from? Was it a flash of inspiration when you were having a shower? Was it a customer that gave you the idea from a real problem that customer had, and this is solving that particular problem? Was it something to do with the design? You've changed the material. What was the actual reasoning behind the product was actually developed in the first place? You can tell this is this is a live session, can't you? I'm sort of fumbling my words, but it's tough. It's more realistic, isn't it? I'm gonna have a quick sip from my Hong Kong cup of coffee. Just a moment. Thank you. So, um, my next story driven approach to selling was um, by painting problems. I've written this down on my list here, painting problems more vividly. So, we all know that customers buy products that solve problems. And the more vividly you describe those problems, the better. And by vividly, I mean descriptively. So if you can really use as much colorful language as possible to draw the customer into the problem, then they are far more likely to be interested. I'll give you an example of um, this was one of my customers' products. Actually, you may well have heard it. Um, he developed onion goggles. It was this product. It was a fantastic idea, and you may well know. I'm sure most of you have tried to chop an onion at some point, and I'm sure also you have started to cry. I know I have uncontrollably when you've been chopping chopping the onion. And this particular customer's product was called onion goggles. And the idea was that you wear these goggles when you're chopping the onion, and it solved the problem of crying. I mean, it was maybe a bit of a gimmick, admittedly. I mean, and it's a little bit ridiculous and funny, actually. Can you imagine people? And people do, in fact, wear goggles when they are chopping onions. But this turned out to be a really, really hot item. And of course, you can use very colorful language to describe the problem in terms of the tears and the emotions and the frustration. So you can, I'm not sort of going to go overboard, but you can very quickly see how you can paint a very emotive picture of the problem. And lo and behold, we have the goggles which solve that problem. I've got to have that. I've got to have that product, but it's the story of the vivid problem which is behind all of that, which leads to the sale. Right, my next way in which we can use storytelling to sell products at trade shows is by showing and not telling. So funnily enough, I am a language teacher, but there are times in which you don't even need any language at all. You could just, for example, do a great demonstration. You could have a video. Um, you could just show the product in use, and that may be sufficient to draw the customer in. You can show the story unfolding right before the customer's eyes. We used to have various different sauce spoons that we used to sell, and one of them was called a drizzling spoon. And obviously, everyone's got all different types of spoons in their kitchens, and spoons are quite difficult to sell because what's so interesting about a spoon. But our drizzling spoon, it looked very elegant, and it used to drizzle a beautiful sort of stream of sauce. It was really a sort of a decorative effect that you could use sauce to you could use it to paint pictures in coffee. You could use it to paint pictures on desserts and things, and it was the perfect item to show, not tell. So we developed this beautiful video, and we had it running on our booth, and without fail, it would always sort of draw people in. And little to no English was used in that particular situation. So here I am, a language teacher, but sometimes a product can sell itself, or it can certainly create enough interest to start a much better conversation with a potential customer, than you otherwise would have. My final point, but I've actually already talked about this, is emotion and energy. I think it goes without saying that you need to be very passionate when you sell. I mean, a lot of the time this goes back to my own personal experience of selling, and a lot of the time when you read um, sales literature, and what sales what expressions you should use, it's all presented as a list, and you should learn all of these expressions, and then you should just parrot fashion them out to buyers and things. But there is no reference at all made to the emotion behind that. There's no connection made to the emotion. And I think selling is an incredibly emotive business. If you deliver a sales pitch without any emotion, it's really quite difficult for a potential buyer to connect with you. They just don't feel, they have to feel it. They have to really feel the language that you are using. And in addition to all of the storytelling, and in addition to all of the descriptive, emotive language, you have to, show a level of passion. I mean, I can feel it sort of rising up in me right now, a level of passion, a level of emotion, and a level of energy. And you have to smile as well. You have to really enjoy the process. And then, buyers lean into that. They can feel that energy, they can feel that excitement, and they can feel, in fact, that the next step on from that is a winning product, something that's going to do well. So yeah, that was my approach to sales on the international circuit. I started off selling, as we all do, selling features, and trying to outdo everybody else. My feature is better than yours. My quality is better than yours. So it goes on. But um, that's a losing game, really. You have to lean into storytelling. And when you lean into storytelling, that product becomes unique. The story is unique. No other product has got the same background and the same story behind it as yours. And if you can get that sense of uniqueness and passion and purpose out there, then you're far more likely to connect with your buyers. So I hope that has helped. Um, this has obviously been a live session, so it's probably replete with all sorts of errors and me stumbling over my words, but at least it's raw and nothing has been edited at all. It's just coming straight out to you. And I do hope it'll be beneficial to you. If anyone would like to contact me for more information about this, please do so. Drop a comment in the below, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you. But all that remains for me to say is thanks so much for listening, and I'll look forward to seeing you all again very soon.